Well, good morning, everybody. This is the Smart Networker, and today is Monday, the 17th of October. Wow, Halloween's only a couple of weeks away. Very exciting. I was doing some research on the rewrite of the book that I'm doing, and the rewrite of what I'm trying to do is to create a kind of a manual, so to speak, a Bible, so to speak, a place where somebody could go and get information to understand what needs to be done in order to make this style of business work. And it's going to be 10 chapters. I'm currently on the rewrite and editing of chapter 9. And one of the areas in that chapter that came to mind that I thought was very important as a result of being involved in this business, and it's actually related to all businesses. It's related to anything that you do, really, is it's called necessity. Now, if we look up the definition of the word necessity in the dictionary, it means necessary. And it could mean importance, and it could mean, we've all heard the story of the lady that went out to the garage and found her son trapped under a 3,500-pound car, and she goes and lifts the car up to get him out. Now, when you think about this, it's like, how the heck did she do that? Well, the necessity for her to do that was so valuable, so important. She put aside everything else that was going on in her life and livingness that said, I got to pick up the car and get my son out of there. That was it. And so we've seen these feats of human behavior that have kind of defied gravity, so to speak, or defied the laws of nature. And so it's with that idea in mind that I want to talk about this subject, because this is important for you and it's important for what you're looking for. Now, we know that what we have here, and again, I'm in the section of chapter 9, which is business success, building success, and it was based on skills, and it was based on what you had available and understanding what you have available. And what's fascinating about this in that sense is what I compare what I've been able to compare with other things. So I had a job. I've had many jobs. I've worked for corporate America. I've worked for public companies. I've helped public companies get started. I've taken ideas from ground zero and built them up to very successful enterprises, sold them off. I've been an investor, both in the public markets like the stock market and in the private markets. And so I've started businesses, I've worked for other people, and I ran across network marketing. Now, network marketing as a business is really no different than any other business, any other activity, in this sense. You have to do something to get a result. You have to put in your time to get a result. Again, in the sense of, okay, I wrote a book, and the initial hit of writing that book and the original sales sold out the first edition, reprinted it, and then the momentum of that then carried into the second edition that was published, and that sold out, and then it went to the third, and that sold out. So I was able to earn a residual income off the initial work that I did. So we have that concept, we have that idea of what is residual or residual income, which actually has a play here in our business, because that's one of the benefits that we talk about and create an understanding for. Now, and again, another aspect of getting older in life, you come to realize the importance of various aspects of what you did when you were younger, or what you wish you had done when you were younger, or what you wish you had set up when you were younger. And you know, hindsight's perfect science. So when I started this business in the 70s, it was, I got a concept, and the concept hit me right between the eyes, and it said, oh my God, what a way to go. And it was in the way that it was described, and it was the way the images came across the screen, so to speak, and what I got to see, what I got to understand. And then what happened after that, which were the conversations and the strategy and the planning to implement the idea. Okay, so we've heard that, or somebody calls you up and they say, you know, I just ran into something I think is really exciting, I want you to take a look at. And this depends on where you're at. And you look at what they say, and then you say, well, am I interested in what he's talking about? Do I need what he's talking about? What's he talking about? I don't know. Am I curious about what he's talking about? Well, for me, I learned at a very young age to be curious, because behind the curiosity, sometimes doors open that surprised me. And I love the surprise. I love the newness. I love, you know, it was that kind of a viewpoint. So when somebody came along and said, hey, I got a better mousetrap, you should take a look at it. Okay, what do you got? I want to know. That kind of, I was curious. And so as a result of that, I looked at these things, and here's what I found was that by looking, doors opened up. And again, this was an interesting way to think about this, but by looking, doors opened up. So if I look to the left, oh, I didn't see that before. Or if I look to the right, oh, or if I listen to what somebody said, maybe I could learn something. Now, as an example, how many of you get bombarded by telemarketing calls? And how many of you get fed up and hang up the phone or don't want to answer it and all that sort of stuff? Well, here's what I did. I turned that around and took every call that came into my life to see if I could learn something. Does this guy have a way or a style or an approach that maybe I could use, because I'm doing the same thing he's doing in a way? In other words, somebody that's pitching, calling me up, is doing the same thing that I'm trying to do with somebody else. And if I'm pushing him away, if I'm rejecting what he's doing, am I kind of setting the same thing up for people rejecting what I do? And the answer to that was yes. The answer to that was, wow, what an interesting way to look at something. I never looked at it that way before, that my behavior would possibly create a negative result in what I was doing. So the more positive I was about what I did, the more positive the results. So if somebody called me up, I would listen, and I would tell them, if I was qualified or if I wasn't qualified, if this was for me, if this wasn't for me. And then if there was an interesting way to open up a conversation, then I would open up that conversation. And again, it was another source of somebody to talk to. What do we do all day long as we talk to people? Is there any way that you can predict who's going to play or not? No, it doesn't work that way. How it works is you go out there and you do the activities that are known to create results, and as much as you can. And then the results happen because you're doing those activities. And that's the way it works. Well, how does this have to do anything with necessity? Well, necessity means necessary. So if what you're doing is not necessary to your survival, your way of life, your means, your ability to go from one day to the next, put food on the table, rent and car and all that other stuff, then to that degree, you're not going to really get into what you're doing. And one of the things that I looked at when I was writing this particular section of the book was, what was important was I had to stay focused. Okay, so let's look at this for what it is, and then really try and put this in perspective and see what's necessary. And it's like you going out to the garage and go lift your car up. I mean, why would you do that right now? I mean, there's no need for you to go out and lift up a 3,500-pound car because there's nobody trapped underneath it unless you imagine something and you're, on a different plane. You get what I'm saying? So you're involved in doing something. There has to be a necessity to do it. Now, the necessity can be created. It can be imagined. It can be developed. It can be part of a commitment. It's somebody said there was somebody on the call and they were out having a smoke and they needed to quit smoking. And I remember I was in that boat. I said I was a smoker. I needed to quit smoking. And I was afraid to tell other people that I wanted to quit because then that would create the necessity to quit. and so it was kind of like I was, holding myself in for fear that I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't get the results that I needed to get. I couldn't get this thing out of my life to a point where it was a positive versus a negative. Of course, I justified it all the time that, well, I feel great. This is wonderful. I like it. It's something I enjoy. Why not? Then to go to tell somebody else, well, hey, I'm quitting, and making that decision then creates the necessity for me to do what? Quit. Otherwise, if I don't, boy, am I going to be embarrassed. I'm never going to talk to that person ever again. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop talking altogether because I don't want anybody to know that I didn't quit. So it's that idea that resonated with building this business. And I've had a long track record of observation. And one of the benefits of having that long track record of observation is you get to see a gazillion different ways that people built it, the results they got, the organizations they created, the people they attracted, all of those different things. But most fascinating was all of them had a necessity to do it, whatever that necessity might be. Or they created the necessity to do it, or they created the commitment, or they said, or they publicly announced. And again, watching some of the gurus did along the way to help, with that was they created ideas or systems or ways to remind you that this is what you got to do. They helped you create the necessity that you had to do it. And for my sake, in what I did to make this happen for me was not, it's kind of like I'd gone overboard before and I got myself into these pickles. And the pickles I got into were because sometimes I just put the blinders on. I didn't think about anything else. But that kind of, sometimes I landed in a pile of mud and sometimes I didn't. And that was my way of doing things, but it all boiled down to the necessity to solve or handle the situation that I had to deal with. So in a sense, I created my own necessity is what I'm trying to say here. And in order to move forward in this particular line of work, you have to create your own necessity. because the only way it gets done is if you do something. Now, that's the real operative here. How does this business work? Well, it works when somebody else buys a product, when somebody else becomes a distributor and sells a product and recruits a distributor. That's how it works. I mean, there's just no question about that. If you're not selling any product, then nothing's happening. You're not getting a check because your products don't give you anything other than consumption for yourself or benefits for yourself. So as a business, how does it work? It works when somebody else does something. Now, when I reviewed my business over time, and I did make a lot of money doing this business over time, it was because I had lots of people in my business. Not one or two, I had lots. And I was very, very fortunate to learn and understand structure. Now, this is a phenomenal area of education, and it's so very important. And it's like in San Francisco, there's a building, I think it's the Salesforce building, that's leaning. As a matter of fact, the foundation is sinking on one side, and it's like somebody along the way didn't calculate right, or they missed the boat, or they didn't put in the right foundation to hold up this, 70-story tower structure that's now tilting and sinking into the ground. Now, from a marketing standpoint, how the heck do you sell that one to somebody that wants to move into that particular project? It's going to be very hard to paint that picture because they didn't understand something about structure. Well, the same thing applies with this business. And I've been working with some people, as you know, and that's part of what I do now is help others. And I said, there's a couple of viewpoints that are really important for you to get when you're talking to other people about what we do. Now, most people that look at networking look at this as they're doing all the work. They got to go out and sell a bunch of products. They got to do all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. So they look at it from a work perspective. Well, fortunately, when I got involved, I didn't look at it from a work perspective. I looked at it from an executive perspective. Well, what's the executive perspective? Well, that's getting others to do the work. I want you to think about this one for a second. In other words, if you're the CEO of a company, are you doing all the work, or do you have a workforce that you coordinate? You're the conductor of the workforce. And what's the best thing you can do is you can, be the architect of this workforce and design and build the right structure for them to work in. And of course, we see this across the planet with various companies that start, how they're built, how they're structured, how they work, what makes them work, all of those kind of things. And the uniqueness of our business, because we don't really have any physicality to what we do, is having a structure of people in a system that support each other. So, for example, this was back in 1991. I built up to the level of platinum, and I had a group in Texas called the Optima Group, and they had 1,200 silvers underneath them. Now, this was a big group back in 1991, latter part of 1991. And down on my 25th level was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Roger Boger and his wife, Judy. And Dr. Roger Boger was a dentist, and he lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And he was enamored by this concept, and he had a necessity. And his necessity was he didn't want to be a dentist anymore because he didn't want to be in people's mouths. And he saw this concept, and he had the viewpoint and the understanding of this could be something very important for him. And so anyway, the Optima Group Nikken ended up having a little bit of a kerfuffle with the law, and some people got upset and they wanted their money back, and et cetera, et cetera. So there was the apparency that Nikken wasn't going to last. And so the Optima Group went off and did another deal called the cookie deal. And the cookie deal was a diet. And it was, you ate this cookie and you'd lose weight. For the life of me, I don't know how that one worked. But anyway, they went off to the other side, and they took the majority of those people away, except Roger stayed in, and he rolled up to my second level in the next 3 years, because I left. I walked away because I didn't think it was going to make it. And he came up and he moved into that position. That's structure. So that structure was so valuable to understand of how it worked and why you want to build the way that works was so important. It was such a huge lesson. We'll talk about that in a separate issue, but that's what I'm talking about as the importance of doing this business, and what's so unique about is its structure. And it's that structure that you need to have an understanding at, so that you can then create this necessity to build it in order to get what you see. You can't get what you want unless you build the right structure. And if you don't build the right structure, you'll never get what you want. I've been watching this for 35 years. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. And it works in a certain way. And if you don't do it in a certain way, it doesn't work. And if you do it in the right way, it works. It works like magic. It really works like magic. So what's necessity level? Well, necessity level is having the need to do what you want to do. So you make a commitment to somebody else, then that creates the necessity level. You create a goal that you want to go after. You tell the world about that goal. That creates necessity. You help somebody else in this business and you commit to helping them get what they want, creates necessity. So what I learned to do in my career was find as many different ways as I could to increase the necessity level of myself and individuals to reach for what it was that they wanted to reach for, and make that a part of what they did on a daily basis. What we do is no different than somebody that's going to Starbucks today. They're going to put in their 8 hours, and they're going to create products, and they're going to sell coffee, and they're going to sell cakes, and they're going to sell cake pops and everything else that they do. And they're going to take their coffee breaks, they're going to have their lunch, and then they're going to go home, and they're going to be with their family, and they're going to have with dinner, and then they're going to watch Monday Night Football because it's Monday. So that's what they're going to do, because that's what I'm going to do today, is I'm going to do all those stuff so I can set up for watching Monday night. You see, so we have our regiment, we have our plan. Now, if I had somebody that said to me, Dave, I'm desperate, I need to make $10 gazillion, I got a family to support, and I really need to spend some time with you. And the only time I have tonight is at 5:15. And I know Monday Night Football starts at 5:15, but can we have a get together? Now, if my necessity is such that I need this guy and I want this guy and he's important to me, am I going to go meet him or watch football? I'm going to go meet him. So we are responsible for creating our own necessity to make this work. And it's by how we plan, it's by how we strategize, and how we understand how it works. You bring somebody to the picnic. And this is an exercise you should all do, but bring one person to the picnic and then build an army underneath that one person. And then figure out how much money you make. You'll be blown away. See, that's what I did. I had one person, we built his organization, and in 1 month, I went to my second month and made $4,300. And I made it on a lesser percentage than you have today. It was teamwork. It was necessity, because everybody had the necessity. Now, there's the interesting thing about moving up this ladder. that we have as a plan, the higher you move up creates the necessity to move up if you have depth in your structure. See, if you have no depth in your structure, then there's no need to move up the ladder. Right now, there's a little bit of a trap. And the trap that we have right now is the fact that we have these contests that require the lowest part of the activity of our plan. And so if you make a silver, then guess what you lose? You lose the component to go on your trip. So if you don't have the desire to do that, then boy, there's no necessity for you to do that. So that's what I'm talking about here. So anyway, that's the lesson for today. You want to think about this one. You may want to play this back and rewind it and watch it again. But necessity is the mother of invention and is a very important way to help you build your business. So thanks for being on today. I'm going to end the call. We'll see you soon on the Smart Networker. And now we'll go into our Q&A. Bye for now.